Hello, guys. I wanted to make this video for you since I'm not going to be there today. We can't afford to miss this time. So I'm going to go through the notes in this video format. And then if you have any questions, you can either shoot me an email, post it in Google Classroom, or we could talk about it on Friday. For the most part, this is going to go pretty quickly. I'm going to show you on the two screens. This is the note page that you had handed out to you, and this is the PowerPoint. And I'm going to show you kind of going back and forth between these two, how this is all going to work. So follow along with me. Feel free to pause it if I'm going too fast and you need to write stuff down. That's why you're doing this independently, because that way, as you guys are writing stuff down, you can pause as you need to. So let's get started. We need to talk about the federal court system. The first thing that you have to understand about the federal court system is that it's not the only court system that we have. Our court system is divided into two parts. The first part is the national judiciary, which is what you see on your notes system. It's U.S. federal judicial system, yes, but the short term for that is national judiciary. And then, of course, we have our state courts, and we're not going to talk about that in this unit. We'll cover state courts when we do our Missouri unit. So if we're looking at our federal courts, which is going to be right down here, and all of these are federal courts, the Supreme Court, the Appeals Court, District Courts, these are all federal courts, but so are these special courts down here, U.S. Claims, Tax, Military and Appeals, Veterans and Appeals. Those are all federal courts. But within these two types of courts are the constitutional courts, which is really only the Supreme Court, and the special courts, which are all of these other six that I have listed. What does this mean? Well, really what it means is the Supreme Court is the only court that's mentioned in the Constitution. So go ahead and put in this Supreme Court box that it's the only court mentioned in the Constitution. These other courts, the appeals court, district court, were created later as special courts. Now they've become a formal part of the federal court system. But as far as Constitution goes, it's just the Supreme Court. Generally, as you're looking at your sheet, Supreme Court is at the top because it's the most powerful. Underneath it is the appeals court. Underneath that is the district court. And we're going to go through what each of these do. And then we'll talk briefly about the special courts, but they are so specialized that they're not intensely important to what you're going to be doing over the next few weeks. So when we look at the inferior courts, which is everything other than the Supreme Court, so the Supreme Court is the constitutional court, everything else are considered inferior courts. When we look at that, we see that there are two types of inferior courts. There are the constitutional courts. These are permitted by the Constitution, but they're not specifically mentioned in the Constitution. And then you have the legislative courts that are given in Article 1 of the Constitution. Now, the difference between these is these special courts function generally like a district court. So if you want to put down here at the bottom of your notes that special courts function like district courts, go ahead and do that. There's only one exception. That's the military courts. Don't worry about that. Don't get sidetracked on that. We'll come back to it here in a minute. So moving on, we need to talk about the term jurisdiction. Now, if you've ever watched a legal show on TV, or some sort of chase movie, or anything where someone crosses a state boundary and the police have to stop because the bad guy or the anti-hero or even sometimes the good guy has crossed over into another country or another state, and the police have to stop chasing them because it's no longer their jurisdiction. That's what we're talking about here. Jurisdiction is authority to hear, meaning try or decide a case. Now, Article 3, Section 2 gives very definite reasons for why a court has jurisdiction. So, up here on your notes, let's go through these reasons that a federal court has jurisdiction. So, you can say reasons for federal court jurisdiction. Number one, it's a legal case involving the U.S. government. So any legal case involving the U.S. government immediately goes to the federal courts. You can't sue the U.S. government in a state court. It just doesn't work that way. You have to go to federal court. Number two, if you're going to have a conflict between two states, that goes to federal court, because where else is it going to go? No matter which state you try it in, there's going to be bias. So if you have a conflict between two states, it goes to federal court. Number three, if the case is about the U.S. Constitution. If you feel like your rights are being violated, if you feel like something that's covered in the Bill of Rights is being deprived from you, that's something that goes to the federal court system. And finally, number four is if you've already been to the state Supreme Court and you want to appeal that decision. If you go to a state Supreme Court, you go from the state Supreme Court to the U.S. Supreme Court. There's nothing in between those two, and we'll see that in just a minute. So those are the four things that you need to put up here: jurisdiction for federal courts. Now, there are some other things that could get you in federal court if the person involved is an ambassador or a head of state or of a national political office. Those are most likely going to be heading to the federal court system. Now, when we're talking about jurisdiction, this is the reason why if you get a speeding ticket, you don't go before the Supreme Court. That's not the Supreme Court's jurisdiction. You have traffic court for that. Same reason why you're not going to take the case of Roe v. Wade, the case that allows abortion in the United States, to traffic court. That's not their jurisdiction. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about jurisdiction. Let's talk appointment of judges, and we can put that right over here. Judges are appointed by the president. We talked about this in our executive branch unit. The president appoints all federal judges. By the way, before I forget, I may use the term judges or justices. Those are synonyms. Both of those are terms that apply to federal court judges. The difference would be in the Supreme Court, they're always called justices. But that's a digression. Let's get back onto what we're talking about. So, appointment of the judges. The president appoints federal judges. Judge appointments have to be approved by the Senate. We've talked about this before. President makes appointments, Senate approves those appointments. So, what are the qualifications to be a judge? Well, strictly speaking, there aren't any. It's funny because we've looked at the legislative branch and the executive branch, and the Constitution is very specific as to what you need to have for each of these branches to do that job. And then it gets to the judicial system, it's like, yeah, whatever the president wants. as long as they can get through Congress. And so there is no formal requirement to be a justice. Now, there's tradition.